The ice-cold divorce papers were slid across the desk by a hand that was somehow even colder. I stared at them, my entire existence seeming to be swallowed up by the plush wool carpet beneath my feet. In a corner office so vast we could have hosted a small wedding in it, the only sound was the soft, rhythmic tapping of Claire Sterling's fingernails against the polished mahogany. It sounded like a countdown, ticking away the final seconds of my 3-year career as a kept man. "Sign it." Claire's voice was as cool and sculpted as her face, revealing nothing. "The terms are what we agreed upon. You'll be well compensated." I lower my eyes, my gaze landing on a string of zeros after the asset division clause. $50 million. Enough to buy a little cottage in Big Sur overlooking the Pacific, where I could finally check out and live a life of blissful, glorious nothingness. Enough to say goodbye forever to this humiliating existence of constantly walking on eggshells, a life where even the housekeeper felt entitled to sneer at me. Yes, finally, the day has come. Thank you, God. With this money, I'm on the first flight to California. I am so done with this life, done with this woman's Arctic glares, done with her whole family of condescending, silver spoon snobs. Freedom, here I come. Inside my head, a full-blown Mardi Gras parade was underway. On my face, however, was the same mild, almost pitifully placid expression Claire had grown accustomed to over the past 3 years. I even managed a soft, shaky breath, as if fighting back a wave of sorrow, before reaching for the weighty Mont Blanc pen on the desk. I twisted the cap off. The nib was inches from the signature line, a blank space waiting to grant me my liberation. In that split second, Claire's hand shot out and snatched the agreement back. Rip! The sharp, violent sound tore through the quiet office. The high-quality paper was ripped in half, then quarters, until it became a flurry of white scraps that she threw down onto the desk like dead confetti. "The divorce," Claire said, her gaze locking onto mine for the first time with an intensity one had never seen, sharp and direct, filled with a complex emotion I couldn't decipher, "is off." The Mont Blanc pen slipped from my fingers, clattering onto the desk and rolling to a stop, leaving an ugly black ink stain on the priceless wood. I was frozen solid. My mind went completely blank except for a single frantic scream scrolling across my consciousness on an infinite loop. "Wait, what? Lady, Ms. Sterling, Claire, what the hell are you playing at? This isn't how the script goes. We had a deal. Take the money and run. Never see each other again. Is this some kind of cosmic joke? Did my sheer desperation somehow move the heavens to screw with me? Or did you just get possessed by a demon?" I watched as her perfectly sculpted eyebrows twitched, just barely. Her sharp eyes scanned my face with a look of inquiry and disbelief. "Oh, no, no, no. Don't tell me she suddenly realized how handsome I am and can't bear to let me go? Impossible. I can count on one hand the number of times she's actually looked at me in 3 years. Is her company going bankrupt and she needs a scapegoat? That can't be right. Sterling Industries is killing it right now." Wait, a thought, a piece of the background story I'd almost forgotten, slammed into me. "You idiot. Don't you know that your precious one that got away, that so-called gentleman of industry, Ethan Vance, is plotting to use the access you gave him to gut your family's company from the inside? Not to mention the little side plan he has to arrange a tragic accident for your parents. You're so quick to rip up the papers, but you can't see the wolf standing right next to you, while well, okay, I'm no saint, I just want to take the money and disappear." My mind was a whirlwind of frantic commentary, but my face remained a mask of pure, unadulterated shock. Then I saw it. I saw Claire's body sway almost imperceptibly. The fingers of the hand gripping the edge of the desk tightened, her knuckles turning white. Her face seemed even paler than before, and a flicker of profound shock and a bone-deep chill flashed through her eyes. It was gone so fast, I almost thought I'd imagined it. She took a deep breath. When she looked at me again, she was the same imperious CEO, but her tone was absolute. "The agreement is void. We have the family dinner tonight. Be on time." Without another glance, she turned, sat back down in her throne-like leather chair, and picked up a file as if the earth-shattering act of destroying my $50 million ticket to freedom had been nothing more than a dream. I stumbled out of her office feeling less like a man about to be set free and more like one who'd just been handed a life sentence. The next few days were torture. I tried to casually bring up the topic of divorce again, even thoughtfully suggesting that I'd be willing to take a smaller settlement if the payout was the issue. Claire just gave me a cool glance, a look that, for some reason, made me feel like she could see right through every one of my pathetic little schemes. It sent a shiver down my spine. What was truly terrifying, though, was that her behavior was becoming strange. That night, for the first time in forever, Claire came home for dinner on time. During the meal, she took a call. It was Ethan Vance, inviting her to a charity gala and pitching a can't-miss, socially impactful philanthropic fund he was managing. I sat across from her, silently shoveling food into my mouth, my inner monologue going into overdrive. Here we go again. Ethan, the hypocrite, talking about saving the world when all he cares about is his portfolio. That damn philanthropic fund is just a shell game, a way for him to launder money and cash out. Tonight's gala is just step one in his plan to sucker the Sterlings and a few other wealthy families into a scam. He even gave it a noble-sounding name, the Dawn Project. What a joke. Just watch. Tonight he'll give some tear-jerking speech about helping kids in Appalachia, maybe even squeeze out a few crocodile tears for a naive, rich girl like Claire. I was deep in my cynical rant when I heard Claire's calm voice on the phone. A charity gala? I'm sorry, Mr. Vance, I have other plans tonight. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. Huh, other plans? Her calendar was wide open tonight. Did I get that wrong? Then I heard her continue. As for the Dawn Project, it sounds very meaningful. However, Sterling Industries has recently adjusted its investment strategy. We're being far more cautious with our risk assessment for new ventures of this type. Besides, I've heard whispers that the fund's accounting has some discrepancies. Perhaps you should get your own house in order first, Mr. Vance. You wouldn't want to leave yourself exposed. The other end of the line went silent for a long moment. Finally, Ethan's strained voice came through. Claire, who have you been listening to? Gossip in the business world is a funny thing. Some of it's true, some isn't. You know that, and so do I. She cut him off, a hint of cold mockery in her tone. I have to go. Goodbye. She hung up. My mouth was hanging open. A chunk of braised short rib almost slipped off my fork. Holy, she actually turned him down? And she called him out on the accounting problems? Did she take the wrong pills this morning? Or did she suddenly develop psychic powers? Something is wrong. Very, very wrong. I snuck a glance at her, only to see her dabbing her lips elegantly with a napkin, as if she'd just declined a routine sales call. But as she lowered her gaze, her eyes met mine for a fleeting second, and I could have sworn I saw a flicker of something that looked like satisfaction. My head snapped down, my heart pounding in my chest. A ridiculous, horrifying thought wormed its way into my brain. Could she? Is it possible that she can hear what I'm thinking? Once the thought took root, it grew like a weed. I started running subtle tests. At a family board meeting, Claire's uncle, Arthur Sterling, a pompous windbag who'd been coveting the VP position for years, was delivering a passionate speech, pushing for a major partnership with an overseas firm. He made it sound like the deal of the century, with astronomical profits. I was sitting in my usual spot in the corner, the token husband completely ignored. My mind, however, was jeering. You moron. You're being set up and you don't even see it. That overseas company is a ghost, a front for an international fraud ring. The contract is littered with legal landmines. The second she signs it, at least $1 billion of sterling capital will vanish, and the company will be tied up in international lawsuits for years. This uncle is either the dumbest man alive or the most corrupt. My money's on corrupt. He probably got a massive kickback to sell out his own family. As I thought it, I watched Claire. She listened to her uncle's blustering speech with a blank expression, her fingers swiping idly across her tablet. When he finished, beaming at her expectantly, she finally spoke, her voice quiet but firm. Uncle Arthur, I'm vetoing this project. Arthur's face fell. Claire, what do you mean? This is a golden opportunity. A golden opportunity? Claire gave a short, cold laugh. She turned her tablet toward him, displaying several detailed investigation reports and flow charts of financial transactions. Do I need to read the background check on this company out loud for everyone? And while we're at it, perhaps you can explain the new, very large deposit that recently appeared in your private Swiss bank account. The color drained from Arthur Sterling's face. A sheen of cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He pointed a trembling finger at her. You're lying. Our legal team and the board of directors can be the judge of that, Claire said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of a guillotine. You're getting on in years, Uncle. Perhaps it's time you retired to your country house. Don't trouble yourself with the family business any longer. 3 days later, the news broke that Arthur Sterling had been taken into custody by the FBI for accepting bribes and corporate embezzlement. Sterling Industries had narrowly avoided a catastrophic financial and legal disaster. The entire Sterling family, and indeed the entire business community, was stunned by Claire's swift, ruthless, and surgically precise maneuver. Only I, sitting on a wicker chair in the mansion's garden and listening to the servants whisper, felt a chill crawl up from the soles of my feet to the top of my head. It was confirmed. That woman could absolutely, 100%, hear my thoughts. I thought back to everything that had happened since she'd ripped up the divorce papers, rejecting Ethan, taking down her uncle, even her return times from work were getting more predictable. At dinner, she would occasionally ask for my opinion on some trivial matter, though my brain screamed that she was just going through the motions. The way she looked at me was getting more complicated. This wasn't an ice queen CEO. This was someone playing life with cheat codes, and I was her unwilling strategy guide. And what did that make me? I'd gone from being a soon-to-be free millionaire to a prisoner in a gilded cage, a poor sap whose secret superpower could get him drained of all usefulness and then quietly disposed of. My cottage in Big Sur, my peaceful life by the ocean. It had all turned to dust along with those divorce papers. The realization sent me into a spiral of panic and confusion. I started trying to control my thoughts. I tried to get the chorus of some god-awful pop song stuck in my head, or force myself to contemplate the origins of the universe. It was useless. The moment I saw Claire or heard anything about her family or business, my internal commentary and spoilers would burst forth like a stampede. And Claire, it seemed, had fully adapted to her new superpower. She started paying more attention to me. It manifested in all sorts of ways. For example, she'd never touched the food I cooked before, even though I'd taken classes, hoping to get on her good side. Now, she came home for dinner every night and would specifically request a dish she knew I made. At the table, she'd casually bring up a business rival or a potential investment, then eat slowly, waiting for my brain's running commentary to give her the intel she needed. And another thing, she used to forbid me from ever entering her study or her bedroom. Now, she silently permitted me to browse the books in her study, my brain helpfully supplied that they were mostly for decoration. And then, one night, I finished my shower and went back to my own room, the small guest room next to the servants' quarters where I'd slept for 3 years, only to find that my old, worn-out pillow was gone. After a frantic search, I found myself, as if guided by some unseen force, pushing open the door to the master bedroom. There it was, my sad, pathetic pillow, sitting primly next to her enormous, ridiculously expensive goose-down one. It was perfectly centered, as if it had belonged there all along. My brain short-circuited. What does this mean? A pillow migration? Is she staking her claim? Or, what's she trying to do? Is this a warning not to get any ideas? What ideas could I possibly get? In 3 years, I've barely even touched her hand. I stood frozen in the doorway, trapped. Go in and sleep there? You have to be kidding me. We were legally married, but we were more like strangers sharing a zip code. Claire's frosty aura could drop the temperature by 20 degrees from 10 feet away. Don't go in. Take my pillow back. That would be a direct slap in the face. And who knew what a mind-reading woman would do if you pissed her off? In the end, I chickened out. I backed away silently, crept downstairs like a ghost, and spent the night on the living room sofa. The next morning, when I showed up at the breakfast table with dark circles under my eyes, Claire just glanced up at me, saying nothing, but I could swear I saw a flicker of annoyance in her deep, unreadable eyes. That evening, I discovered the living room sofa had been replaced by a bizarre, sculptural piece of furniture that was impossible to lie on. I just stood there, and so began my new, schizophrenic life. Corporate oracle by day, homeless person in my own mansion by night. Tonight, a storm was raging, the sky split by lightning and drenched in a torrential downpour. I had just finished setting up my makeshift bed on the living room floor, Yes, she'd even taken away my sofa privileges when a master bedroom door clicked open. I sat up, instantly alert. Claire was standing there in a silk nightgown, her arms wrapped around herself. The dim hallway light outlined her slender figure. Her face, usually a mask of icy composure, now looked pale and vulnerable. It had to be the lighting. She looked at me, her lips moving a few times before a sound, small and fragile, came out, trembling slightly. Liam. A jolt went through me. My hair stood on end. I hadn't heard her call me by my name like that in 3 years. Not with that tone. Can I sleep here with you tonight? She seemed to be using every ounce of her courage, her voice getting quieter. I'm scared of the thunder. I blinked. Scared of thunder? Claire Sterling, the woman who faced down a boardroom of circling sharks without flinching, the corporate killer who could negotiate rivals into bankruptcy, is scared of a little thunder. You have to at least try to make your lies believable. This excuse is even worse than me trying to block my thoughts with pop music. My mind was screaming, but I forced a stiff smile onto my face. I don't think that's a good idea. I'm a terrible sleeper. I just keep you up. Another jagged fork of lightning lit up the room, followed by a deafening clap of thunder. Claire flinched, her shoulders hunching as she hugged herself tighter. Her eyes, wide and glistening, were fixed on me, filled with a look of dependence and pleading I had never, ever seen before. My heart gave a weird, painful squeeze. Damn it, this woman. Is she addicted to acting? But that look, I'll be damned if it isn't working on me. I was still in the middle of my last stand against insanity when she took a few steps forward, walked right over to my pathetic floor bed, and, without any further ceremony, lay down on it. She pulled my blanket over herself, leaving only her wide, expectant eyes peeking out at me. The floor is cold, she mumbled. I just stood there, my world tilting on its axis. Outside, the thunder roared. Inside, my nominal wife, the Ice Queen CEO of Sterling Industries, had commandeered my humble pallet on the floor and was looking at me with an expression that was dangerously close to a pout. My big sir escape plan? I glanced out the window at the storm, then back down at the woman curled up on my floor bed. For the first time, a terrible certainty washed over me. My cottage, my ocean, my dream of a peaceful, worry-free existence. It was well and truly dead. This miserable life, I was so desperate to escape. It looked like it was going to continue, and it was heading in a direction I could have never, ever predicted. I was still standing there, my brain threatening to overheat and melt. Scared of thunder? Claire Sterling is scared of thunder? That's more likely than the sun rising in the west. The last time the company's stock took a nosedive, she didn't even blink, and now she's telling me she's scared of a little noise? Give me a break. This has to be a trap, a test of some kind. Or she wants to listen to my thoughts up close, make the spoiler extraction process more efficient. My internal alarm bells were screaming, but I managed another smile that felt more like a grimace. Claire, really, this isn't right. I snore, I grind my teeth, I talk in my sleep, you won't get any rest. Boom! Another crack of thunder exploded, sounding like it was right on top of the roof. The woman on the floor flinched again, curling into a tighter ball and pulling the blanket higher. All I could see were her eyes, which looked unnaturally bright in the dim light, and were now shimmering with what looked suspiciously like tears. She stared at me, her voice a near whimper. It's really scary. I was a loss. Damn it. I can't fight this. I really can't. When did she learn how to do this? That look, that voice. I know it's an act, so why do my feet feel like they're encased in cement? I took a deep breath, preparing for one last attempt at a strategic retreat. I could go sleep in the study. But just then, Claire patted the empty space on the floor beside her. Her voice was barely a whisper, but it had a strange, magnetic pull. There's plenty of room. The last thread of my sanity snapped. I moved like a robot, walking over and lying down stiffly beside her, my body as rigid as a soldier's on parade. There was enough space between us to park a motorcycle. I could feel the rough texture of the carpet through the thin blanket. The air was filled with her scent, a clean, cool fragrance that was completely at odds with my cheap drugstore body wash. The thunder continued to rumble, and with every clap, I felt the person next to me tremble slightly. Then a cool hand carefully hesitantly brushed against the back of mine. My entire body went rigid. The blood rushed to my head. She's touching me. Stay calm, Liam. Stay calm. This is a honey trap. A seduction. She's trying to corrupt your will, to make you forget about the good life in Big Sur. Think of the coastline. Think of the freedom. I tried desperately to brainwash myself, but her hand didn't move. It just rested there, her fingertips cool, conveying a faint, unspoken sense of trust. In the dark, our breathing was the only sound. Mine was heavy, hers was light and shallow. I don't know how much time passed. The thunder faded, replaced by the gentle patter of rain against the windows. Just as I thought this absurd slumber party was going to pass without further incident, Claire's voice, soft and husky with sleep, broke the silence. Liam. Yeah. I answered automatically, my throat tight. About Ethan Vance. Thank you. My heart hammered against my ribs. Here it comes. Thank me? For what? For mentally calling him a two-faced scumbag? For spoiling his entire evil plan? So she can hear me. She's admitting it. No, wait, she didn't say it outright. This is a test. I fought to keep my heart from beating its way out of my chest and tried to sound casual. Thank me for what? I didn't do anything. There was a moment of silence from her side. Just when I thought she'd fallen asleep, her voice came again, barely a whisper. Never mind. Go to sleep. She hadn't exposed it. But that vague thank you was like a boulder dropped into the still lake of my mind, sending out massive waves. It was a tacit admission. The thin veil between us, while not completely torn away, was now utterly transparent. I didn't sleep a wink that night. The next morning, I showed up at the breakfast table with even darker circles under my eyes. Claire was already there, impeccably dressed, reading the Wall Street Journal, as if the thunder-fearing woman who'd crashed my floor bed was a figment of my imagination. But things were different. Claire was no longer just using my inner voice for business decisions. She started to actually engage with my life. She'd casually ask what my favorite food was, and the next day, it would appear on the dinner table. She'd even take a few bites herself and offer a clipped, "It's adequate." When her snobbish mother, my mother-in-law, came to visit and started ordering me around as usual, demanding I fetch her tea, things played out differently. Liam, can't you see my mother's cup is empty? Do you have no eyes? I roll my own eyes internally. Here we go. Queen snob. Your own daughter is being targeted by corporate sharks and the ghost of boyfriends past, and you're still focused on your damn tea. I was about to get up and play the good little servant when Claire put down her file. Her voice was quiet but absolute. Mother, we have staff for that. Liam is my husband, not the butler. My mother-in-law froze, her face turning an interesting shade of red and white. I froze too, staring at Claire's cool profile, a strange, tight feeling in my chest. Did she just offend me? Then there was the matter of the ever-persistent Ethan Vance. After Claire had shot down the Dawn Project, Ethan, clearly not one to give up, concocted a new scheme, some private island development project, another attempt to lure Sterling Industries into his web. At a cocktail party, he cornered Claire, oozing charm, reminiscing about their shared history and hinting at a profitable future collaboration. As the mandatory arm candy, I was stuck at Claire's side, my mind providing its usual color commentary. This guy just doesn't quit. This island project is an even bigger scam. He's in bed with some shady offshore group, trying to secure our investment and then vanish with the money. The proof is on an encrypted flash drive his assistant carries. The password is his first girlfriend's birthday, followed by the date he pulled off his first con. The thought had barely finished forming when I saw Claire offer Ethan a perfect, plastic smile. The project sounds fascinating, Ethan. You know, I've recently taken an interest in data encryption, password protocols especially. I hear using a combination of personally significant dates makes them extra secure. You know, like an anniversary, perhaps. The smile on Ethan Vance's face froze. A flicker of pure panic crossed his eyes. Claire didn't give him a chance to recover. She looped her arm through mine, her voice now unnaturally warm. Honey, let's go get a drink. I let her lead me away, my body stiff as a board, my mind reeling. She heard it. She definitely heard it. And she didn't just hear it. She used it instantly. That's a terrifying level of learning and application. I stuck a look at her. Her expression was serene, as if she'd just been commenting on the weather. But I could feel the hand on my arm tighten just a little. Things were escalating far beyond what I could have ever imagined. Ethan got desperate. He couldn't accept Claire slipping from his grasp, and he certainly couldn't stomach the idea that the useless husband he'd always looked down on was somehow gaining her favor. He decided to make a reckless move. He conspired with a few disgruntled Sterling shareholders to stage a kidnapping. The plan was to force Claire to sign over control of the company, then frame me for the crime. Naturally, none of this escaped my spoilers. Oh, hell no. That psycho is making his move. It's happening next week, on her way to inspect the plant on the west side. He's hired a crew of thugs, and he's going to plant evidence that I did it out of jealousy. If that sticks, forget Big Sir. I'll be spending the rest of my life in a federal prison. I was pacing like a caged animal. I had to warn her, but I couldn't just say, hey, by the way, I can see the future. I tried dropping hints at dinner. Man, the news is crazy lately. Seems like there are kidnappings all the time, especially out on the west side. Claire just looked up at me, silent. I accidentally left a printout of an article about Ethan's recent, suspicious financial dealings on the coffee table, which I'd acquired through anonymous channels. She saw it, but still said nothing. I was starting to lose hope. Is she not hearing me? Or does she just think I'm developing an anxiety disorder? I'm not worried about her. I'm worried about my freedom. The night before her scheduled trip, just as I was about to give up and start planning my own escape route, Claire summoned me to her study. Only a single desk lamp was on, casting long shadows across the room. She stood by the window, her back to me, looking out at the dark city. I'm going to the plant on the west side tomorrow, she said suddenly. My stomach clenched. Oh, be careful on the road. Will you be worried about me? She turned around. The warm light softened the sharp angles of her face, melting away some of her usual iciness. The question caught me off guard. Worried? Of course I'm worried. I'm worried that if something happens to you, I'm totally screwed. But what I mumbled was, you're my wife. Claire just watched me, her gaze steady for a long, silent moment. Just when I thought she was about to read another one of my damning thoughts, she smiled. It was a small, faint smile, but it was like watching a glacier crack, beautiful and breathtaking. Don't worry, she said, her voice soft but filled with an unshakable confidence. I'll be fine, and so will you. The next day, Claire left for the west side as scheduled. I was a nervous wreck, checking my phone every 5 minutes. In the afternoon, a news alert popped up on my screen. Local police, in cooperation with the FBI, have foiled a high-profile kidnapping plot, arresting several suspects. The alleged mastermind, Ethan V., is currently a fugitive. Sources say the successful operation was thanks to an early tip from a highly vigilant local business leader. I stared at the screen, letting out a long, shuddering breath before collapsing onto the sofa. My palms were drenched in sweat. She knew all along? She didn't just hear me. She was already 10 steps ahead of everyone. That evening, Claire returned home, safe and sound. She walked into the living room, saw me visibly slump with relief, but didn't say a word. She just took off her coat and started up the stairs, as if it were any other day. As she passed me, she paused for a fraction of a second and said, so quietly I almost missed it, from now on, you don't have to try so hard to hint. My head snapped up, but all I saw was her elegant back as she continued up the stairs. That one sentence was the final verdict. It confirmed everything. She knew. She had always known. Ethan Vance was caught during his escape attempt. The evidence was overwhelming. He was facing a very long time behind bars. In the fallout, Claire cleaned house at Sterling Industries, purging the last of the disloyal elements and cementing her power. It seemed like it was all over. My Big Sir plan was, theoretically, back on the table. Except I realized I wasn't in such a hurry anymore. This house no longer felt like a cold, suffocating prison. Claire still listened to my thoughts for business insights, but she also started trying to have real, actual conversations with me. They were still awkward and often ended in long silences, but it was a start. She'd ask me, what did you think of that movie? And when my brain screamed that it was garbage, she would nod in agreement. She took the cheap little potted plant I'd bought, the one she used to despise, and gave it a place of honor on her study windowsill. She even started to smile at me. It was usually just a slight upward twitch of her lips, but for an iceberg, it was a seismic event. Then one day, I felt something hard under my pillow. I pulled it out. It was a brand new property deed. I opened it. The address was in Big Sur, California, overlooking the Pacific Ocean. The owner's name, Liam Parker. I just stared at it. Just then, Claire walked into the room. She saw the deed in my hand, and a faint blush colored her cheeks, but she fought to keep her voice steady. The $50 million was too much liquid cash. It would have raised red flags with the IRS. Converting it to real estate was more practical. I looked at her, my chest filled with a feeling that was both aching and incredibly warm. This woman, she's really something else. Before I could even finish the thought, she looked up as if she'd heard it anyway. Her eyes met mine, and in their cool depths, I saw my own reflection. I also saw a vulnerability I'd never witnessed before, a look that was both terrified and brave. Liam, she took a deep breath, her voice trembling slightly. What if? What if it wasn't just the $50 million? What if it included me? Coming with you to Big Sur? Would you be willing? The afternoon sun streamed through the window, illuminating her face and the deed in my hands. I looked at her for a long time. Then I picked up a pen. On the deed, that symbol of my long-dreamed of freedom, I slowly, deliberately wrote my name right next to hers. I looked up, meeting her eyes, which were now shining with a brilliant light. For the first time, a genuine, unburdened smile spread across my face. It's a big house, I said. A guy could get scared of the thunder, living there alone.